Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. It is Tuesday, May 28th, 2019. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon right across from me.
What's up?
And this is our 20th edition of the Fantasy Champions Podcast. We are already 5 months into this thing, which is absolutely crazy. Keep listening, keep supporting. And on this episode of the Fantasy Champions, we will be talking about our top 10 tight end rankings and finishing up our rankings for the 2019 season. They will obviously, as we go along, be adjusted and be changed as we go. But first, before we get to that and the news, be sure to do the following. Like us on Twitter at the FF Champs. Go over to Instagram at the Fantasy Champions and like us over there. Give us a thumbs up on Facebook.com/The Fantasy Champions and subscribe wherever you listen. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. Click the bell to get notifications on YouTube. Leave a review. Share a podcast with your friends. Let's get right into the news. Are you ready, boss?
As ready as I'll ever be.
That was like the quickest intro ever. The first bit of news that we have is Julian Edelman signed a 2-year contract extension with the New England Patriots, essentially making him a Patriot for life. I'm not sure. I think he's, 32, 33 years old?
I think he's 34, like actually. So a little older.
Jules is an old man now. Edelman in fantasy for next season, he's a guy that I was kind of surprised at the consistency of. Like, he's not a fantastic fantasy wide receiver, a guy who's going to blow you out of the water, but he will get you 10 to 12 fantasy points a game. I just don't know his value in the future because of how old he is and how little he has left in his career. But he does sign a 2-year contract.
He's 33.
He's 33?
Yeah.
So he does sign a 2-year contract extension with the Patriots. Perfect place for him. I didn't ever see him leaving New England anyway.
No, he's not playing anywhere else.
He loves Tom Brady more than his own children.
That is true.
Chris Carson had a surgery to clean up his knee. He is expected to return to practice in a few weeks. Pete Carroll kind of putting a little flower on this, trying to make it sound good. But Chris Carson getting a knee surgery never is a good sign. He could miss a lot more time than a few weeks. So I'm not sure if this is going to really hurt him or help him for the season. But if it's something to watch continually as we progress towards training camp and preseason, because if he starts missing more extended periods of time.
It's Rashad Penny time.
It's Penny time. Let's go, Rashad Penny.
Get the pennies out.
Get the pennies out. That would be totally illegal, but imagine if he scored touchdowns and people just started throwing pennies.
He just poses like he's in a fountain.
People just start throwing pennies. Yeah, that would be ridiculous. Cowboys and Ezekiel Elliott discussing a long-term contract extension that would make him the highest paid running back in the NFL. I love Zeke, but I feel like this contract would be a waste of time for them.
Dude, you're not trying to pay a running back
no
gazillions of dollars so he can go eat Chick-fil-A and get fat halfway through his contract?
That's totally fine, man. He's already fat to start the contract. So
why dissing on your boy?
Zeke can eat as much as you want and still run for 2,000 yards.
I say we test the limits with Zeke.
Yeah, push it.
How fat can you get
and still succeed?
Still be a top 3 fantasy option in running back?
I'm saying like 270, 280.
What is he right now?
Like 230.
Oh, Zeke could push 260.
Yeah, and then run people over. Imagine.
Yeah, he's like LeGarrette Blount, but even slower.
It's true. All the 49ers running backs seem to be getting injured at this point. Raheem Mostert, he's hurt. Jerick McKinnon missing OTAs. You have Matt Breida tearing his pectoral muscle. With all that being said, Tevin Coleman is expected to be the number one back in San Francisco. So wherever he goes, it's just an exodus of running backs getting hurt. So, or a plague of running backs getting hurt.
Are you saying he rigs the system somehow?
He does rig the system.
Are you alluding to the fact that he might
be hurting players? Yeah. No. Yeah, I would not be excited. A lot of people are like, yeah, let me go grab Tevin Coleman. He's like the number
chill.
one. Yeah, no, I had him on my team an entire season with the same exact offense, and it didn't work out too well.
McKinnon's going to be the starter. Breida is going to be the backup, and Tevin Coleman is still going to somehow be the number one option in the backfield.
It's true. Greg Olsen and Delaney Walker have both been cleared to practice. Interesting development for both of them. Greg Olsen's a guy who we've been waiting for to come back for quite some time. He has good upside. We will talk about him on our Thursday show, but he is cleared to play, and so is Delaney Walker. Both of them are good options later in drafts to kind of take a look at and see if they can succeed for your fantasy team in the future. I almost burped on that. I was like trying to hold it back.
They're both old guys, though. I think Greg Olsen, when he's actually out there, is actually pretty good. The problem is just him getting on the field. And Delaney Walker is, again, similar, where he's pretty good when he's out there, but he's probably going to have Ryan Tannehill half the season, and there's A.J. Brown and Corey Davis, so not too big of a fan of either of those guys.
Nope. Ben Watson suspended for violating PED policy. He apparently retired from the NFL and got subscribed some medicine that was illegal to recover.
Retired from the NFL.
Then he came back for the New England Patriots, and it said that he is going to violate. He came back into the league, and you know what? To be honest with you, I think this is kind of ridiculous that he is going to get suspended for 4 games for leaving the league, coming back in, and taking a drug while he was retired, and then coming back and getting suspended 4 games, and they haven't even suspended Tyreek Hill yet. And they don't want to impede the investigation.
Oh, yeah, that part is very true. That's extremely dumb. But I think there's a chance that Benjamin Watson
we're going to levy this 4-game suspension on Ben Watson for taking an illegal substance to help him recover faster. But Tyreek Hill can beat his kids.
Wow.
Yeah. The NFL,
not wrong, though.
NFL needs to get their act together. And finally, Jake Laser reporting that Todd Gurley's knee injury is a little more serious than expected, something that we already kind of knew anyway, but the fact that it was confirmed by Jake Laser is kind of disconcerting. I am getting a little annoyed with the amount of people hating on Todd Gurley. You don't want to draft Todd Gurley? Fine, I'll draft him.
He's your lover.
I love Todd Gurley. I'm going down with the ship.
That's not going to end well for you. Because that ship is going to go down. It's just a matter of
if I have to sacrifice a season.
I mean, if you're going to... Good thing we're in the same league together. So.
Yeah, no. I think that Todd Gurley is going to go down at some point, but I doubt that it's going to be soon.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people are they're jumping off too fast. You need confirmed reports because he played in the Super Bowl. And a lot of people are like, oh my God, he didn't have a good Super Bowl. He didn't have a good Super Bowl. No one had a good Super Bowl.
That's true.
C.J. Anderson didn't have a good Super Bowl. Literally no one in that running game had a good Super Bowl. He didn't have a great playoff run. No.
Yeah, in general.
I think he had a good game against the Cowboys. Him and C.J. Anderson. It looked like Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram situation in that first game against Dallas because Todd Gurley had a good game, and so did C.J. Anderson, and then you went to the next game. And I think that's where stuff started acting up in his knee from in the season because he only had 3 rush attempts. So I think they pulled him out of the game for something, and it looked like he was just standing on the sidelines, but I think there was something wrong. And then when I think they went to the Super Bowl, I think that Sean McVay stating that he was going to get a ton of reps in the Super Bowl and all that. I think he was probably planned to do that, but when stuff stopped working, they tried C.J. Anderson, and then when C.J. Anderson stopped working, it was just altogether not working.
GG at that point.
I don't really count the Super Bowl, so there's not a large sample size to say Todd Gurley's not good anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how much is Darrell Henderson going to take away from Todd Gurley? That's what I've been talking about for months now, or since the NFL draft at least, is how much can Darrell Henderson take away, even if he gets 20% of the snaps? Hey, he takes 15, 20% away from Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley still finishes in the top 5. That's how good he is.
Right. Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think there is slight concerns just because it's Jake Laser reporting this, which means for a fact that there is legitimate concerns about Todd Gurley, but we've known that.
Yeah.
So
let's move to our early top 10 tight end rankings, the most boring show on the face of the earth.
But a show you'll need to listen to.
Yes. Over the next 2 episodes, we're going to discuss the top-ranked tight ends for us early in the 2019 season. We're going to use these probably for our drafts, tiering, breaking down, but they're early, so don't make fun of us too hard. Let's start with number 1 on our list, Travis Kelce. He was number 1 for you, number 1 for me, number 1 for ECR. He's one of the best tight ends in fantasy football for the last couple years. I haven't seen a tight end play this consistent since Mr. Rob Gronkowski. He literally comes out every single season, regardless of the quarterback, and continues to succeed. The reason why I have him ranked number 1 is because I think Travis Kelce is a guy who has all of the opportunity. He's getting more and more opportunity as the offseason goes along.
Which is insane because last year he was getting a lot of opportunity.
Exactly. They're probably not going to have Tyreek Hill, as we referenced earlier. They're definitely not going to have Kareem Hunt because they cut him. And so it's like, both of their top weapons are gone. They now have a lot of younger guys coming in, a lot of unknowns coming in, and you have one guy that's just stood pat there, and that's Travis Kelce. He's as good as it is at tight end, and if he gets more opportunity, he's only guaranteed to turn that into success. I think he could finish in the top 10 of wide receivers if he was in that category. That's how good he could be this year. But I still don't think he's worth that second-round draft pick. Right now, he's going pick 205. That's way too high for a guy named Travis Kelce.
I love Travis Kelce. You know it. I love all my Chiefs players.
Oh, boy.
But, pick 205 it's just because the simple fact that tight ends do not score as much as running backs and receivers.
Right.
So if you're taking Travis Kelce in the second round, he's got to be putting up points similar to guys you were going to take instead of him in the second round,
right?
Which he just doesn't do. He's not going to put up the same amount of points as any receiver. Even in the third round, you can make the argument in the fourth round,
right?
Borderline. So the second round, pick 5 is a little too high for me. But Kelce, as you said, he's going to get all the opportunity in the world. Mm-hmm. He is the guy in that offense now. And sure, the offense is not going to be as successful as it was last year,
right? But
it's still got Patrick Mahomes. It's still got Andy Reid, and they're still going to be pretty effective on offense.
Right. You can't, if you have Travis Kelce at the tight end position, because obviously our strategy, it continues to be don't draft a tight end high. It's not worth drafting Travis Kelce high, but if you somehow get him on your team, you have the best tight end in fantasy. This is the guy that you're going after. With Gronk out of the way, even last year, Gronk, when he was still in the way,
even though he was getting
he wasn't much of an obstacle to jump over. Yeah, Travis Kelce is the clear number 1. Is there any doubt in your mind that this guy doesn't finish in the top 2?
No, I think he's guaranteed top 2, top 3.
Yeah, agreed. Number 2 on our rankings, Zach Ertz. I have him number 2. You have him number 2. ECR has him number 3, which I kind of found a little bit interesting. Zach Ertz, he has, once again, all the opportunity in the world. I think that there is going to be a little bit of a decrease in target share because of the guys that they added. They added Deshaun Jackson. They have a J.J. Arcega-Whiteside that they brought in. I think it's a 3rd or 4th round wide receiver in the draft. So I think that they got some pieces, including Miles Sanders as well, but they got some pieces at certain positions to kind of pull away from the targets that Zach Ertz would normally get. With that being said, Carson Wentz loves Zach Ertz. I have him number 2 because I think he's the most consistent tight end in fantasy. One of the most consistent tight ends in fantasy. I think that last year, I don't think he put up a lot of burger games where he just completely collapsed.
No, he didn't.
Travis Kelce had 2 or 3. I'm not sure there was any for Zach Ertz, and I think that effectiveness carries over. When you have a tight end, and this is one thing that I was thinking about last year, is that the tight end position is so weak. When you have a tight end like a Zach Ertz, a Travis Kelce, and a George Kittle with or on top of the fantastic running backs and fantastic wide receivers, if it's a supplement to the already greatness that you have at your other positions, your team is like unstoppable. And I think that having one of those three guys is great. The problem is you can't make that happen by drafting it most of the time. So you kind of have to make a trade for it. But Zach Ertz is one of those guys that will consistently get you. It's like an unfair advantage at tight end.
He is. He's awesome at tight end. I don't like him quite as much as Kelsey, and I just like him slightly more than Kittle. But he's very consistent. There's been concerns about having too many weapons on that team this year. But Carson Wentz's favorite weapon is still Zach Ertz.
Right.
So he's still going to get his fair share. He is so consistent at the tight end spot, but again, he's getting taken a little too high for me.
Yep.
Very good tight end.
305, I believe.
305. I mean, you look at other players taken in the third round, they're just going to score more total fantasy points.
Yeah.
Wide receivers and running backs, at least.
Especially like if you choose to go really quickly, but especially if you choose to go running back, wide receiver in the first 2 rounds, and then you get to the third round, it's like you draft Zach Ertz. That's a spot where there's some really good running backs sitting there.
You could miss out on some.
You could miss out on some really, really good guys, and then you'll be stuck with guys.
Not that if you take Zach Ertz, or let's say you even take Travis Kelce, you're going to get a good player.
Yeah.
You're going to have one of the best guys at that position, but you're missing out on a lot of potential fantasy.
You always have to ask that question when you're looking at Travis Kelce, because if you're a person who doesn't do your own rankings or doesn't go into the ranking setting in your fantasy football platform and figure out who you're going to pick, and you just organize it by ADP, and you're like, ooh, I'll just draft Travis Kelce here. Yeah, that's not a great draft strategy. I've noticed that in the leagues that I'm in, it's not always the case, but I've noticed in leagues that I'm in, the teams that suck at the end of the year are the teams that drafted tight ends extremely early. Most of the time. Number 3 on our list is George Kittle. We both have him 3. The ECR has him 2. I'm not the only reason why I could see ECR having him higher than Zach Ertz is just because of the lack of targets that they have in San Francisco. He's going to get so many targets. It's going to be out of this world. And so I think I don't know how many targets he had last year. I wish I had that stat in front of me, but George Kittle is an absolute machine when it comes to fantasy points. I was a little bit down on him earlier in the offseason. I was a little nervous that he was going to be a guy that busted out this year, that he was a flash in the pan. But the more I look at the San Francisco offense, the more I think that he could be a decent asset, a very decent target for Jimmy G.
He, to answer your question, he had 136 targets last year.
Oh, jeez.
Which is pretty good.
Wow.
If he plays a full 16 again and gets, 140-ish targets, he's going to be top 3.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
He might even get more targets than that, to be completely honest with you, because if Garoppolo's healthy, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot, and there's not many guys to throw to in that offense.
Right.
So Kittle, I get the hype around him. I just don't quite put him on Ertz's level yet, just because of Zach Ertz has proven it with Carson Wentz. He's proven it with consistency. Kittle had a great year last year with Nick Mullins, but I want to see him with Garoppolo. I know he didn't have a touchdown when he played with Garoppolo last year. I just want to see those two connect. But it's close. I mean, you can't go wrong with any one of these 3 guys.
Right.
But, again, I'm not drafting George Kittle in the third round.
I think for me, the reason mostly why he's number 3 on my particular rankings is because Kelsey and Ertz, to me, are a lock. Like, they're a lock at number 1 and 2 next year. George Kittle's one of those guys that might actually fall out of the top 3. And he might bust next year. I think there's a percentage of bust. Like for Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz, the only way those 2 guys bust is if they get hurt. I think there's a chance that George Kittle actually could bust next year and finish as like the 6th or 7th or 8th tight end instead. I don't think that chance is extremely high, but I think that there is a little bit of risk in taking George Kittle. With that being said, would you rather have George Kittle or Zach Ertz in the 3rd round? I'm taking Zach Ertz. I'm not taking any of these tight ends in the first 3 rounds.
No.
But if you had to hold me down and say you're taking a tight end in the 3rd round, then I would take Zach Ertz. But George Kittle is a spectacular very talented tight end, and I think if he can connect with Jimmy G, he'll be a good tight end in fantasy. Number 4 on our list, ECR, you and me all have this guy at 4, O.J. Howard, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers tight end. I'm a little bit surprised you ranked him as high as you did, just because you were not very high on O.J. Howard this year.
No, I wasn't. But if you notice a trend with me, I am surprisingly a little high with a lot of Buccaneers players on offense, because I just think they're going to throw the ball an insane amount this year.
Yeah.
And they threw the ball a lot last year. And Cameron Brate was kind of Ryan Fitzpatrick's guy, and O.J. Howard was Jameis Winston's guy. And now Fitzpatrick's not there. It's Jameis Winston's team. Right. I think he's going to get a lot of targets,
Right.
Adam Humphries isn't there anymore. Deshaun Jackson's not there anymore. So, to me, the door is open for O.J. Howard to be the number 4 ranked tight end. But honestly, once you get past George Kittle, it is a crapshoot.
This is we're entering tier 2 of the tight ends, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, you know what it is?
What?
It's Kittle, Ertz, and Kelsey is tier 1. And then everybody else is tier 10. That's what it is.
It's like a giant drop off.
It is.
I think it's just O.J. Howard, to me, is the most likely to succeed. I think in that offense with Jameis Winston, he loves to throw to O.J. Howard. We've seen it in the past. When Ryan Fitzpatrick came in last year, right? He threw it to Cameron Brate most of the time. And then when Jameis Winston came in, he was throwing it to O.J. Howard most of the time. So if Jameis Winston can stay on the field for a full season, O.J. Howard will most likely be the guy to get a majority of the targets. And if he can spread the ball around pretty evenly and O.J. Howard can get somewhere upwards of 100 targets, which is probably what he needs to finish in the top 5.
Yeah.
Then I think it's a very, very good possibility that happens. But to me, he's a guy that now is going in the 6th round. Is he worth that risk?
I'm not taking him in the 6th round, personally.
It's very high for a tight end. And for a guy that you think is a risk, I was putting him on my sleeper board 2 months ago, and now he's the 4th, 5th tight end taken off the board. I mean, the guy, as good as I think he's going to be, it's just hard to take him at 6. Evan Ingram is the number 5th guy on our rankings. We have them both at 5, and the ECR has him 6. Ingram has struggled with injury the past couple years. He has been a guy that has a lot of talent and can break out, and he's in an offense that really will help him exceed. It's just, or succeed, not exceed, but he's just not staying on the field or staying healthy. This is the first full off season that you've been okay, Evan Ingram can come in and play week 1 of the season. The problem is that a guy with the amount of injury problems that this guy has had is going in the 6th round again. And it's do you want to take a risk on Evan Ingram in the 6th round, especially in that offense that no one is liking right now at all? They're all
there's only one guy in that offense.
Give me Saquon, and that's it. I do think that Evan Ingram has a ceiling, has an upside. He has very good upside, but I think the floor is more likely for Evan Ingram, which is unfortunate for a tier 2 tight end. And it begs the question of should this guy even be ranked this high?
I have him that high and have him 5th because he is in an offense where he's going to get a lot of targets.
Yeah.
When they throw the ball, at least. I don't know how much they're going to throw the ball this year. Odell's not there, so the opportunity should be there for him. But is he going to stay healthy? And is Eli Manning going to actually perform?
Yeah.
Is Evan Ingram going to actually get the ball thrown to him well?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of question marks with Evan Ingram,
yeah.
But he does have the upside enough to put him at 5.
Right.
But if you had him 10th, I wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah.
Taking him in the 6th round is too high.
Hunter Henry is the number 6th guy on our draft rankings. ECR has him 5th on their draft rankings. I think Hunter Henry is actually more talented than Evan Ingram. I think he's a better
It's close.
It's close, but I think he's a better tight end. And I think he also is in a better situation. And now I'm starting to wonder why I ranked Evan Ingram.
Here, I'll remind you. Hunter Henry is coming off a major injury.
Yeah.
There's a lot of receivers, unlike in Evan Ingram's situation.
Yeah.
there is a lot of receivers in the Chargers organization that are very talented. Phillip Rivers is an old man, just like Eli. Not quite as old or crappy yet, but I think he's got 1 year left, I think. But even last year, well, I'm not going to say that because he had a really good year last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if he starts falling off, Phillip Rivers.
Right.
So, yeah, I do like Hunter Henry. I'm not saying, like, again, and if you want to rank him ahead of Evan Ingram, like, I'm not going to.
Feel free.
Yeah, you can even rank him ahead of O.J. Howard.
Yeah.
After George Kittle, I think you can go any number of ways with the tight ends.
I think the thing with me and Hunter Henry is that Henry, I hate to say upside because that's 90% of the guys that we're going to talk about here in the top 10 is upside. It's just literally guys that may finish in the top 10, but also could completely bust out. I think Hunter Henry, he's in an offense right now with a quarterback that has a history of throwing into tight ends when he had Antonio Gates. And I think that he's a guy that will target a talented tight end, and I think Hunter Henry is that guy. So if we see anything similar to a target share that a guy like Antonio Gates had when he was with the Chargers, right, I think you're going to see Hunter Henry succeed, not to that level because that was, crazy good football, but I think you're going to see Hunter Henry succeed to the point where he could finish in the top 5 and he could be a surprising finish. But the concern with Hunter Henry is he's going 707, and is that a guy that you want to draft at 707?
If he falls, yes, but that's in the 7th round, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, there's guys that you can take there to kind of construct your team even further. I'd rather. My big thing is that I'm kind of sick and tired of streaming tight ends, but you kind of have to with the strategies that help you succeed in fantasy.
Here's the thing. We've been talking about these top 3 guys, and you're probably thinking, well, if there's such a big drop-off, why not just take one of the top 3 guys? There is a very big drop-off, but the point difference is honestly not an insane amount where you should take one in the top 2nd or 3rd round.
Right.
That's the difference where, yeah, sure, there's a big difference. There is a difference between Vance McDonald and Travis Kelce, sure.
Yeah.
One guy you're taking in the 14th round, one guy you're taking in the 2nd round.
Right.
But the difference between the 14th round and the 2nd round shouldn't be like 60 fantasy points.
Right. No.
Which is pretty much what the difference is.
Exactly. The number 7th guy on our rankings is a guy in an offense that is expected to be prolific, fantastic, huge. David Njoku. I have him 7. You have him 8. The ECR has him 9. David Njoku, he's got talent. He's got opportunity. He's in a good offense. He's got all this. He's got everything in the world. Everything's lined up for him. And I was a little concerned a couple months ago. David Njoku had a situation where he was rising. He was going up and up and up and up and up in the ADP, and now he just plummeted to 10. I think people who follow football a little bit later are starting to draft. David Njoku is a guy that I would draft him over all the 6 guys ahead of this because
of where he's getting
taken.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Right now he's a 10th round draft selection, and in an offense where he is as talented as he is. Now, if I don't get him, that's fine. But if he's sitting there, right now he's 10-10, like
so 11th round,
basically 11th round. And so for David Njoku going in that spot, that is a perfect location for you to draft David Njoku. Yeah. I mean, he, like I said, all the opportunity in the world this season. If he does not succeed this year, he's basically poor man's Jordan Reed.
I don't fully agree with that just because I think Odell's going to get an insane amount of targets. I think Jarvis Landry is still going to be a vocal point of that offense. Kareem Hunt.
Well, I don't think, by far, I don't. The reason why he's 7 is because I'm not convinced he's going to be a breakout this year, but he's as close to it as you're going to get in the 10th round.
And, I have Njoku a little lower than the guys we've just talked about, but just like you said, I think all of these guys that we've talked about past George Kittle are so close that, because Njoku's going in the 11th round, I would take him. These other guys I wouldn't have drafted, but I would draft Njoku for sure, because if you're getting him in the 11th round, I think he has a certain ceiling just because there's so much talent around him, But you could also see Njoku being like the 5th ranked tight end this year, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Number 8 on our rankings, Jared Cook. New Orleans Saints signed him this offseason to a 1-year deal. He was a top 5 tight end with the Oakland Raiders, who weren't in a very good offense. He shifts to a good offense and to a quarterback who likes to throw it to tight ends. That's exciting for me. I think if you finished in the top 5 last year and you're going to an offense and you're the number 1 tight end on an offense that likes to throw it to tight ends, I would say he's going to have a successful year. Yeah. The only concern, like you've said in the past, is Drew Brees' age and the fact that he drops off. You say you get Jared Cook. Jared Cook has a good year. He averages 8 fantasy points a game. He's having a really decent season. And then you get all the way to the playoffs, and then Drew Brees goes on his mass exodus of not scoring fantasy points, and David Njoku struggles. That's not a good situation not David Njoku. Jared Cook struggles. And now you're sitting there with a guy that is just not amazing at the tight end position when you could probably have just traded for Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, or George Kittle to have success.
For me, the only reason I have Jared Cook just slightly ahead of Njoku is because Drew Brees loves, even though I'm kind of down on him this year and a lot of old quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Drew Brees loves to throw to tight ends. And he has said in the past few days in the Saints offense, and there's been reports saying that they love Jared Cook, and he's been really good, better than expected. So I think they're going to use him enough in the offense, and he's talented enough where his ceiling isn't as high as Njoku's, or some of these other guys we've talked about. But I don't think he's going to finish lower than like 11th or 12th.
Yeah, definitely. Number 9 on our list is a little bit of a hot take. Jack Doyle,
oh boy,
Indianapolis Colts tight end. I have him 9, which is higher than Ebron. You have him 13, and ECR has him 13. I like Doyle, and I'll die by the ship of Doyle.
I know.
I'll tell you that much. Jack Doyle is a player that when the season is on and he is not hurt, Jack Doyle is the number 1 tight end. Last year, you told me Eric Ebron had 110 targets?
Yep.
So in that offense, I think there's going to be a regression to targets to the tight ends just because they added some more talent at other positions.
Correct.
But I think there is if Jack Doyle is the number 1 tight end, the only thing Eric Ebron is going to be useful for is getting targets in the red zone. I think that's about it. And even at that point, you got Devin Funchess.
That very important.
It's extremely important, but if Ebron's only getting targets in the red zone, half those targets are going to Devin Funchess, are you telling me that he's going to have a big year?
No. I'm not high on Eric Ebron, but I'm not high on Jack Doyle either.
I like Doyle simply because he's a younger player than Eric Ebron, I believe, and I think that Jack Doyle has a chance at being a very good tight end. He has better hands than Ebron. The only problem with Jack Doyle is the fact that he gets hurt 90% of the time. If the guy can stay on the field, stay healthy, he gets like 90 to 100 targets next year, I think he could be a very high-ranked a very high-ranked tight end in fantasy football. And that's why I have him ranked 9 and ahead of Ebron, because I think Ebron was a flash in the pan.
I don't disagree with that. Go ahead. You can finish your point.
No, go ahead. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
So
I've trashed on Ebron in the past.
One, Ebron is actually 3 years younger than Jack Doyle.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, so that's...
Flip me.
Yeah. Second, Doyle played in 6 games last year, so it wasn't like Ebron was the starter the entire year.
Yeah.
And he only had like 30 targets in 6 games, which I know is decent, but not great. And I do agree with you. They're not going to throw it to the tight ends as much this year. So that's one of the reasons why I think neither guy will be that successful, because if you're not going to throw to the tight ends as much and you add another receiver, I don't know. I'm not completely sold on.
I don't fully disagree with you on the fact that Jack Doyle and Eric Ebron, I think Jack Doyle has a high ceiling. If Eric Ebron goes out and tears his ACL in training camp, Jack Doyle can be good. But I think Jack Doyle is a better tight end than Eric Ebron, and I agree
with that, yes.
I think that if he gets the opportunity and something happens to Ebron, I think Jack Doyle could finish somewhere around 5. But to me, you're right. With Jack Doyle, I just, for me, you look at Jack Doyle and you look at Eric Ebron. Who has the higher ceiling? I think Jack Doyle has the higher ceiling.
To me, I don't think either one of those guys have that high of a ceiling because they're both on the same team, and if one of them gets hurt, then the other one will have a higher ceiling. But going on the assumption that both guys are healthy, I don't think either of those guys will be like legit top 5 fantasy tight ends because they'll both be taking targets away from each other.
The number 10 tight end and the final tight end of this episode, Austin Hooper. I have him ranked 14. You have him ranked 9, and ECR has
him 8. You have him ranked 14?
I don't know why I have him ranked 14, to be honest with you. I absolutely love Austin Hooper. I'm a little lower on guys, I guess. I have guys like Trey Burton and Eric Ebron ahead of him.
You have Eric. Wow.
He's like, wow. I love Austin Hooper. I think out of all the tight ends, he has probably the highest ceiling.
And we talked about?
Yeah. That we talked about.
I'd say OJ Howard probably, but he's up there.
Yeah. I mean, I have him 10 because I don't think he's going to do that just because of the amount. He's going to get a lot of opportunity, but the concern for Austin Hooper is the fact that he's in an offense with a lot of targets. And I think that there's a lot of stuff to go around, even if Matt Ryan's going to throw 600 passes this year, which a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, no. But in that offense, if they do throw it 600 times, Austin Hooper will get a good share of those targets, but I'm not sure it's going to lead to extreme huge season like a George Kittle jump.
Oh yeah,
no, that's what you're looking for. That's what you're trying to find in the late rounds of the draft.
Right.
Now, there's a few guys, and we'll talk about a few of them on the next show, but there are a few guys like Austin Hooper, Trey Burton, Jack Doyle, some of those guys I'm looking at later in the draft because I think that those guys have, a little bit more upside for the season at a later draft cost. You know what I mean? You're not spending a ridiculous amount on a tight end like you would on Howard, Ingram, Henry, Njoku, and Cook. It's less risk, but a higher reward if it pays off.
Yeah, I don't really fully disagree with what you said. I think Hooper is a hooper.
Hoop, there it is.
He's a very talented tight end. He's gotten better each season.
Yep.
I'm just concerned. I think Calvin Ridley's going to get better. I think Julio Jones is still Julio Jones. Mohamed Sanu.
Right.
Like they have a lot of guys on that offense, and is Hooper going to get his share?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think he will to a point, but that limits him.
Right.
Because I know you said you think he has the highest ceiling. I don't know, just because there's so much talent.
Yeah.
Around him. So I'm not sure what his ceiling actually is. But however, I do think he is going to have a very good year this year. And if one of those guys get hurt, well, watch out, because then he jumps. Yeah. He takes a giant leap.
Definitely.
Same with Njoku. Both those guys are similar.
100%. That'll do it for our top 10 tight end rankings. Be sure to listen on Thursday for tight ends 11 through 20. We're going to dissect and break down those guys. That's a show to listen to because those are guys that are going to be late round draft selections that might break out in 2019. So be sure to listen next week. You got any closing thoughts for us?
Dude, we forgot Gronk.
Oh, we got to throw Gronk on the list. I'm going to put him number 2 next to Travis Kelce because he's way better than
I just did a mock draft, and I took Brady 1, Gronk in the second round, and Edelman in the third.
See you later, Fantasy Champs.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter @TheFFChamps.